to the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer and Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good evening.
It is Monday, November 25th, 2024. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon/Gaming Discourse. You can support us for $247, $10. Get your name in the video credits, early access to our videos, access to our Discord server, and more. Okay, so
Blue Sky.
You can follow us on Blue Sky. Something I posted there the other day, but I don't post on Blue Sky much because I don't like social media. It gives me anxiety, so instead I play video games and get anxiety from that, and not Blue Sky, and not social media. If you've been following us on Patreon, you know that tomorrow I am recording an interview with somebody special, and I'll go ahead and spill the beans. Professor Tori Olson is a history professor at the University of Tennessee. He recently wrote a book about Red Dead Redemption and history, the historical accuracy of Red Dead Redemption, how Red Dead Redemption 2 portrays American history. It made the rounds. It made some news when he announced he was starting the class. And I got into contact with him, and he said, "Sure, yeah, let's talk." So I don't. His voice is not that high pitched. He's not Mickey Mouse. Oh, let's talk. So no, but so tomorrow got a talk scheduled. So I'm excited for that. I'll have it edited, and then hopefully in the next, day, maybe Wednesday morning, I'll have it edited, uploaded on Patreon, and then good to go. I finished my Metro Awakening review. It was up on our Patreon on Thursday. It is now up publicly. I'll just say a little bit about Metro Awakening. I put in the thumbnail a very clickbaity thumbnail. Not the Metro VR game I was hoping for. And as clickbaity as that sounds, I think it really is sort of a sufficient summarization of the review, because Metro Awakening is a fine game. It's okay. It works. The combat works. The stealth works. The ambience works. And the performances are pretty good. There's some good acting in it. But as far as being a VR game, I thought it was kind of boring and not that great. And when you think about Metro, there's all these opportunities for things to translate into VR, right? So like one example would be the flashlight charger. If you've ever played the Metro games, you know that your flashlight is charged with a handheld charger that you have to bring out and you have to charge it, right? So if you don't charge your flashlight, it eventually goes out. So that's one of those things where it's like, hey, that would be great in VR. And Metro Awakening does have some of that, but Awakening is much more story-centric. Combat is not as dynamic. Difficulty is not as dynamic. There is no Ranger mode in Metro Awakening. And the Ranger modes in the mainline Metro games are not just more difficult, but they level the playing field. So you die really quickly, but enemies also die really quickly. So it makes it more realistic in a sense. And it accentuates the survival aspects, because health syringes and ammo become more scarce. And that's what I think really brings out the survival horror of the Metro series the best, is Ranger mode. But Metro Awakening doesn't have a Ranger mode. It just sort of has your standard difficulty options. So yeah, Awakening's not a bad game. I wouldn't say it's horrible, but I wouldn't say it's particularly good. And that's what, to me, is so disappointing about it, because a Metro VR game has a ton of potential to be amazing. And there are people out there that are attempting that. There's a game called Convergence that I haven't played that is clearly inspired by Metro. There's a game called Into the Radius, which is more Stalker, but Stalker and Metro are kind of like cousins. Not just because they come from the same part of the world, but they have similar themes as well. But Into the Radius is very similar, where like everything in the game, your map, magazines, your flashlight, is like a thing you have to grab, and you can lose if you toss it or whatever. So it's all diegetic is the appropriate word. So yeah, that's kind of my overarching take on Metro Awakening. Go check out the review. Leave a like, assault and battery the like. Give me a comment telling me that I'm the greatest reviewer of all time.
Hit that bell icon.
And hit that bell icon, and I'll appreciate it. I've been playing a few other games, but I'm more interested in what you guys have been playing, and then maybe I'll bounce it back to me. Richard, what have you been playing? I know things are tough.
You're in the headlight right now. I don't think I've been playing anything.
Nothing?
No.
All right. No Rebirth?
I'm trying.
trying?
Yeah, I feel bad playing it right now because like I'm forcing myself to play it, and I don't want to because I know that like playing it, my only goal is to get through it, and that's doing a disservice to that game because I keep hearing about how good it is, and I already can like see it's good and playing it's good. So I think I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna do it until I'm ready again. And I keep
to really take your time.
Yeah, and I keep like I'm playing smaller things that are just like, you know, those quick endorphin boosts like Overwatch. I'm doing Overwatch. And Street Fighter and Tekken I'm kind of doing here and there because it's just jump in and punch some stuff and then leave. But yeah, I'm there's so many things throughout this whole last year that I keep like, oh my God, I can't wait to play that. I can't wait to play that. And then when it comes time to like want to play it or need to play it, I just like don't feel like it. So I'm probably burnt out right now. And I also am kind of also waiting for like Steam sale.
Yeah.
Just December 4th, which is weird. I'm surprised they're not doing one on Black Friday. I think it's autumn sale or fall sale or winter sale starts the 4th, December 4th.
Connor?
I played and beat Zero Protocol.
Hey, okay, I've heard of that one. Yeah, horror game.
Yes, it's a horror game. It's also very like Doom and Quake-like in the sense of like you're going through these levels, trying to find key cards, solve puzzles to get through the level. I would avoid playing it if I were you, Tyler.
Are there spiders?
They jump at you.
Okay, interesting.
They are large mutated spiders and they jump at you.
Nice.
Okay. The game isn't deep. It approaches deep topics, but it avoids them on purpose. I don't think the creator really wanted to say too much with the game. A lot of it does end up being capitalism bad, which isn't wrong. But it really doesn't go much farther than that. And I think for what the game is, like horror-wise, I think that's fine. You play as a security guard in an Arctic research facility. So all the horrible things that could go wrong there go wrong there. Giant mutated spiders and undead alike. It is fun. It takes about 3 hours to beat. And found out after beating it, there's multiple endings.
Oh,
so
boy.
I'm gonna have to go through it again. I think there's only 2, but I'm gonna have to go through it again and get that other ending.
Yeah, it's something to do.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it is a fun game. Trying to think of the right way to say this. Its horror drops off as soon as you find the shotgun. But then the game's like, all right, now we're gonna just like throw things at you from corners that are just from blind corners so that you get scared no matter what.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So kind of, all right. I can see what you mean. Yeah.
You get the initial pistol and it's rapid fire, does no damage. So, you know, things are getting close to you, but you're able to fend them off. But then you get the shotgun. It's like, all right, normal guys dropping like 1 shot, the tougher guys dropping 2 shots, and suddenly I'm neck deep in everything.
Understand. Okay. Well, yeah, I played the demo. I thought the demo was kind of neat. There's a lot of interesting audio work.
Yes.
At the beginning of a game, because it has to do with zombies. There's like zombies that will come after you. So at the beginning of the game, you'll just hear in a part of the research facility just thumping on a door, and you just know someone's on the other side of the door going do do do, and you don't hear much other than that. So it's like you constantly hear things around you,
and there is a sanity mechanic in the game, and without going into too much because that is tied to spoilers. A lot of the ambient things in the game are tied to your sanity.
Okay, very much like Amnesia.
Yeah,
in a similar way. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's one that's on my radar. So I'll have to check it out. So Balatro, I picked up and have been playing Balatro.
I've been. It's like in the corner of my eye, and I've been like,
if you're not in the mood for anything and you need like a palate cleanser,
yeah.
Balatro may be the thing that you're looking for. Balatro. I didn't think my words would inspire that much reaction. Now, Balatro is it's your deck building roguelike, right? Where you have to, basically how the game works is you play poker hands. Poker hands are worth so many points, and then you try and get past lines, which are point thresholds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like when you start a round of Balatro, you have to get past 600 chips to continue, right? So let's say you play 3 of a kind, you put out 3 7s, right? So that's 7, 14, 21. So that's 21 chips because it's 7 points for each card. And then the hand itself, 3 of a kind, is scored. It's like times 3, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
7, 14, 21, 21 times 3, 2, 4, 6, 63, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be the chips you got for that hand, right? So it starts off where you have to get past like 300 like chips or something like that, which is kind of high, but not as high as you think, because you'll get like kings and queens, and you do 2 of a kind full houses, and you'll score way more points. But it's one of those games, kind of like Baba Is You, where there's tons of alterations you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start figuring out, once you start unlocking more cards, and once you start figuring out like how to manipulate your deck and stuff like that, you can start scoring. My high score is like 1 million chips in a single round, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like an insane amount of points. And you can play an endless mode where there is like a quote unquote finite mode where you sort of finish, but you can go into an endless mode after that, where the game just keeps, the blinds just keep getting higher and higher, and you just keep trying to see how far you can get your multipliers, and the entire thing is just break the game, score as many points as you can possibly can. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I tried it out, and at first I'm not, I have to play a game. I'm not someone that can sit there and read tutorials. I have to just play it, and I'll figure it out eventually. But once I figured it out, once I clicked, I was like, oh, okay. And that's when it sort of began to skyrocket. There's a couple different jokers in the game, or special cards that are outside of the deck, and they change the way when you play a hand, they change the way that it's scored. So like the basic joker is just a +4 multiplier, which means if a 3 of a kind is the chips times 3, it adds +4. So it's the chips times 4 with that joker card, right? And you can have up to 5 joker cards by default. So other joker cards are like all face cards, so your kings, queens, and jacks are scored twice. So it'll score it, and then it'll score it again, which exponentially raises the chips and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of manipulation and stuff like that. And it's gotten me addicted, and now I'm like, man, I need to try out other roguelike deck builders, because I have not. Like I haven't played Inscription or anything like that, which I know it's popular and good. But the thing is, this is one of those things that people would call it a roguelike and not a rogue. No, this would be a rogue, like, not a roguelike, light. But
Light.
The difference there is a difference that I don't care about. It's all the same thing. But that's just one opinion that I have. But your deck is going to be different every time, because every time you restart, you can choose a different deck. There's different decks that have different effects, but it's the same 52 cards, I think, for the most part. So it's like a run will end, and the way that you've customized your deck disappears forever. So you can't really get too attached to when you're building a really good deck, because when you lose, it's gone forever. I've never played Inscription. I don't know if Inscription is like more in the terms of a roguelike, where it's like after 10 hours, the deck that you use to play the game is way better.
After 10 hours, you're not playing with the deck anymore.
Okay, well, 5 hours?
I'll just say this: the deck part of Inscription lasts about 2-3 hours, depending on how fast you go through
Interesting.
it. And then the game changes, and I got disappointed to stop playing at that part.
Oh, Well, I'll have to check it out because I don't know much about it. But anyway, so yeah, I would highly recommend it. And yeah, if you're not in the mood for like big open world games and you need something you can play 15 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time,
It's the best one to do it.
Balatro is perfect on the Steam Deck. It's $15, and
It's $10 on Android, all right?
it is. Oh, interesting.
yeah.
It's $10 on Android. That'll get you
And
going.
I do Google opinions, so that money builds up fast.
Nice. Other than that, I have been playing a lot of Black Myth. I jumped back into Black Myth Wukong. I haven't talked about it a whole lot, just because I've been playing it in like little spurts. But in the past week, I've sort of really sunk my teeth into it a lot more. It is good. It's got good combat. It's got an interesting story. There are some things that I don't know if there's anything I dislike about it. It's more of your linear Souls-like. It's player friendly in the sense that when you get points to level up, those points you just get them like an action game. It's not like it's not like Dark Souls where if you die, your points are sort of left behind, and if you die again, they disappear. You just get points to level up, and you level up. The combat is kind of similar to God of War. You eventually get 4 spells, and these spells all act in different ways. So like Immobilize is the first spell you get, and it just freezes it just stuns an enemy, and they stay frozen, and you get to wail on them for a bit. And if you attack, I forget how exactly it works, but you can break their Immobilize if you do the attack right, and it does a ton of damage, well, relatively speaking. But so like that's the first spell you get. There's other spells. There's a spell called the Ring of Fire, which is pretty cool, where I call him Sabumafu. I don't know what. He's the destined one. I'm sorry if that's offensive.
Isn't it Sun Wukong?
I think that's his name.
Yeah, Sun Wukong is.
It is kind of funny though, because when he jumps, he makes like ho ho. It's just like,
Yeah, it's the Monkey King.
It's kind of funny not to think is a little silly. I don't know. It's fine. Like, it's not dumb,
he
but
apparently, and I haven't read the books. I wish I did, but I have heard through online conversations that he is very much a Bugs Bunny type.
Really?
Like he is absolutely like he can make clones of himself just by like pulling out like
the
the
strands,
hair,
the hairs, yeah.
And so it's like you'll be like people use the example like you'll be fighting him and then like the camera will pan back and he'll be there like that guy's crazy, like stuff like that. Like,
but anyway,
I like to read those.
Ring of Fire. Ring of Fire is one spell where he draws a circle in the ground and it's on fire, and it does different effects. Like if you stand in the ring, you get your health back and whatnot. So that's kind of how combat works. And then you have your normal Souls-like combat where lock on, dodge, attack, that kind of stuff. The boss fights are difficult, but you can learn them. They're not the hardest boss I have fought. I told you guys about the tiger guy. He's definitely the hardest boss that I have fought. And I learned, I haven't confirmed this, but I think the tiger guy, one of his abilities is he turned into stone in the middle of the fight. And if you wailed on him when he turned into stone, he would break out of it and launch a huge attack at you.
Oh, cool.
But if as soon as he turned into stone, if you stopped attacking him, he would kind of break out of it and be like discombobulated. Like he expected you to attack him, and then you'd have an opportunity. So there's little things like that where you learn about bosses. I have fought other bosses where there's cool boss design. Like there's this one boss I came across. It's one of the story bosses. It's this giant rock dude, and he has a ton of health, like a shit ton of health. But his moves are super telegraphed. So it's a battle of attrition, because it's like, it's not hard in the sense of dodging his attacks or seeing them coming. What's hard is just surviving long enough to take his health down, because he just has a ton of health. There's a dragon I fought where it's the kind of opposite. The dragon doesn't have much health. Its health goes away pretty quickly. But the dragon flies in the sky and does a lot of quick attacks that will just annihilate you. So you kind of have to know. And then there's different ways to knock the dragon down, Dragon Rin style, and wail on it. So instead of just every boss being like a dude with a katana who just eviscerates you, there's like different designs where you kind of have to approach the boss differently, which is pretty neat. And obviously it's not the only game to ever do that, but I think they've done mostly a pretty good job. Yeah, my biggest complaint about Black Myth Wukong is, and I said this about Senua's Senua's Saga. Like Unreal 5 has a bunch of good looking rocks, and man, the shadows off those rocks look amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just good looking rocks with shadows. It's not art direction. And so when you're walking through a cave and that cave looks amazing, or you're walking up a mountain trail and that mountain trail looks amazing, yes, it looks amazing, it's stunning, but it's just rocks and mountain trail. There's no distinction. There's no, when I think about Elden Ring, it's like you turn a corner, there's a castle in the distance, there's a tree over here, there's a creepy statue over there. Behind you is a knight on a horse that wants to rip your face off. There's all these different things in the distance that you could tell that the people that designed the world are like, here's what the player is going to see. They could kind of visualize it moving through the world, and that's awesome. And Black Myth, I think Unreal Engine 5 looks great, so we're going to make everything look good, and that's fine. But a good looking rock is still just a rock. And between that and Deathloop, give me Deathloop every day, where everything is stylized and cool and flashy and colorful and distinct and memorable. So yeah, and it's the same thing with Senua's Saga, which I need to go back and play. Senua's Saga is like, there were moments where the visuals were incredible, but there were also moments where you're just walking past good-looking rocks. There's just no distinction there. There's nothing memorable. So yeah.
That's why something we talk about Astrobot a lot, because and Elden Ring is of course the other good example. You just look left and right, and Elden Ring has the benefit of being open world, so I can be like, what the hell is that? Mm-hmm. Like let me go over there. But yeah, if I were to play something like this is why I'm talking about this, because Final Fantasy VII kind of has this Rebirth, because they give you an open world and it's cool. It's really great, but I think one of the consequences of trying to remake Final Fantasy VII is that there's a lot of locations people want to see, but they don't just want to see your character on it with like just the town background. They want to see all of it now, and so it's like Square Enix has to be like, okay, well, we gotta build this whole city from scratch now. But when you go into open world in Final Fantasy VII, a lot of it is just grass. Yeah. A lot of it is just. So when I did get to the open world, and I think this is probably something that brought me down a little bit, was like, this open world is very pretty, but it was just like, I don't really feel like doing all of this, because it's just all, I do see that place over there. And then when you get there, you kind of like vaguely remember, if you've ever played there, it's just like, oh yeah, I kind of remember this. But then you're just like, all right, well, I got to go do the main thing. But yes, if I were to play Black Myth, I feel like walking those pathways, I would just begin to just hyper focus and like get out of there as soon as I can, because like, what else is there to see?
Yeah.
Especially if it's not like littered with things.
Yeah, and there have been some moments of awesome design and stuff like that. There was one part where I was in a prison, and it was like a panopticon, so in the middle of it was a giant bell thing. It was really cool, and the bell was spinning, and so you kind of had to run up the wall and find like ramps that would take you up to the next level as you kind of got up to the top of this panopticon, but of the prison. But so that's something that I think a lot of people are starting to talk about now with Unreal Engine 5, is like, hey, good looking rocks are great, but it's just a good looking rock. Mm-hmm. I think Forspoken, I only played the demo, but that's what I felt with Forspoken too. It's like, see this little village? Doesn't it look good? It's like, yeah, it looks amazing, but it's just a little village with some like grass surrounding it. There's no distinction. There's no what's special about it. What's interesting architecture, interesting design, interesting whatever. Like there's nothing there. So yeah, photorealism is just photorealism, and it has its place. It's not completely useless. But again, give me Deathloop any day of the week. Give me Pentiment any day of the week. Something where it has distinction and the art itself kind of says something. Hell, give me like isometric, original Baldur's Gate backgrounds and like painted backgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah, pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yeah, those things. Like I love those things. That sort of design to this day so much. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, I'll talk more about that. I still think Astrobot's my game of the year. But yeah, as I've been learning black myths, combat, and working in the spells and beating the bosses and stuff like that, it does have some damn good combat. It can be difficult, but I think I like its combat more than Dark Souls and Elden Ring, because Black Myth feels much more aggressive because there's lots of dodging. Enemies, I feel like enemies telegraph a little bit more, and your attacks are really quick. It's not in Elden Ring. If you decide to attack, it's like, oh, you attacked. I'm going to need you to fill out this form, and then there's going to be we're going to do a 5 business day wait to see if your attack lands.
2 to 5 business months.
And in that time, you may be shot in the face. Like, that's attacking in a From Software game. But no, in Black Myth, you can sort of do a chain and you can dodge out of it. So attacking doesn't have the same, what's the word I'm looking for? When you decide to attack, it's not as much of a commitment in Black Myth. And you go really fast. And I'll have to show you guys footage because the combat can get fucking insane where the camera is just spinning and you're dodge attack, and it just gets awesome. But yeah, so I'll play that more. Astrobot's still my game of the year. Hit the news, and unless Connor has something to say.
I wanted to ask you something.
Yes, go ahead.
You and I just beat Space Marine 2.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so it was funny. So Connor and I played Space Marine 2.
Yeah.
We finally finished it this weekend. Connor is a scholar of the Warhammer universe. So as I was going through, I was like, what does this mean? What does that mean? Actually, the ending of Space Marine 2 is pretty fun. I think the combat reaches a plateau 2 hours in, and it's like, hope you like staying here because this is what combat is.
Yeah.
It doesn't become much more, but unlike Black Myth and Senua Saga, Space Marine 2, which I think is also Unreal Engine 5, Space Marine 2 loves art direction because it cannot wait to show you a Lehman Russ going through a door or
So there
a
are some
battlefield.
things.
I think it's Unreal Engine 5. I could be wrong about that, but
There are some things that you missed.
yeah.
Like the Emperor class Titans just in the background that are destroyed. That are, these walking death machines with cathedrals on their backs.
Yeah.
That are just in the background. And unless you look at it, you're like, oh, that's just, a structure. No, it's a robot. It's a giant man-powered robot that, is just decommissioned here now.
Yeah. So while Space Marine 2 definitely, it recycles some environments and the combat does get a little monotonous and I think boring at times because it's sort of the same thing. They were constantly trying to show off the epicness and the grandness of Warhammer and giant fights and tanks and dudes, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria just all over the place.
Spaceships flying into giant things.
And it just wanted to be as cool as hell. And I appreciate that because I think it sort of understood what Warhammer is.
Yeah.
Warhammer is not about the good looking rock. Warhammer is about
there are 3 colors in Warhammer: mud, blood, and shit.
Yes. And there's this awesome scene where you'll see I don't know, I forget what part it was. I won't spoil the ending, but at the ending there's a big enemy. I'll say that. And you are part of this convoy of Lehman Russes and mechs and the troops, the little Imperium ground troops who are just like humans. And you're just running alongside them, and out in the distance you just see this massive enemy and just gunfire everywhere. And and it's so fucking cool because you're just running into that with all these tanks next to you, and you're just like, all right, let's go. And then as soon as you hit that front wall, and it's like you enter the front line or something like that. But yeah, that's sorry. So as far as questions go, I don't want to spoil anything because I think.
Well, spoiler, starting now.
Okay, we'll do. Are you okay with?
Yeah, I couldn't care. I mean, I'm interested in Warhammer. The first game I could not do. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just, it's actually the same problem that you had. Like within like an hour, I was like, oh, this is the same thing. Same thing over and over again.
They give you different things, and there are boss fights and stuff. But for the most part, I think combat's pretty samey. But anyway,
I still do want to play it though. It looks really good.
It starts off really well. The middle of it is kind of like, this is fine. The ending is very good. So it's like it's bookended by a lot of fun.
Cool.
But
Great.
the middle couple hours is like you may have to force yourself to sort of chug through it.
All right.
Connor, okay, so we're gonna put
I already have a timestamp that I'm gonna use for
Connor,
spoilers.
yeah, go ahead. So what's your
was there any questions? Because you just said you had questions that were spoiler wise.
well, no. So I think the next enemy is going to be the Necrons.
Definitely.
Yeah, because you see signs of Necron activity.
Signs? You're
And by that I mean
you go to
literal signs that say the Necron are here.
you go to Necron temples. You go into Necron structures. You're on a Necron tomb world.
Yeah, sure.
It's not signs. They are here.
Which are things that I didn't know. I did not know what they were, but apparently Necron are like enemy or this alien race that are asleep, and so they can be woken up.
They are currently the oldest race in 40K.
That's awesome. That's cool.
The Eldar were made to fight them as well as the orcs.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. Okay, interesting.
Well, not the orcs as we currently know them. It was the predecessor of the orcs called the Krorks.
Okay, interesting.
They just dropped the KR. Yeah, those were the species made by the old ones to fight the Necrons.
Oh, okay, interesting. I think in whatever they do, hopefully it's the Necrons, I think that could be cool. I think in Space Marine 3, it would be great if you were able to finally take control of a Lehman Russ or something like that. I don't know. Maybe not.
It wouldn't be a Lehman Russ. Space Marines will not fit inside a Lehman Russ.
I know, but I'm saying like if you were able to, I don't know, if there was a part of the game, something where you could
a vehicle section
or something, or add some kind of dynamics. I'm not saying you turn it into Battlefield where it's like you can hop in and out of tanks and airplanes and stuff, but I guess I just, every time I walked by one of those tanks or walkers, I was just like, I would do anything to control you because you just look so cool.
I want to be inside you.
Yeah. No, yes, that would be cool. And yeah, but at the same time, it is a game called Space Marine, so it's like they don't want to deviate too much from.
But there is the it wasn't. Wait, was it just Dark Tide, or was there another Imperial Guard game coming out soon?
There's like 3 released every week, so
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure there's probably more Warhammer video games in the works right now, but I don't know off the top of my head any. No, although a Battlefield style game where it's like the Imperium versus, I don't know, some other enemy, that could be pretty cool, because Warhammer has all the tools for something like that. Okay, so I think we'll hit the ad now, and we'll get to the news. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server.
Saw like the Imperial Guard equipment failing.
Oh yeah,
like the flashlight just cutting out,
the las guns and stuff like that. Okay, so this is something we were going to talk about last week, but we didn't get around to it, so I wanted to get back to it this week. Phil Spencer hit the press, talked with Stephen Totillo, talked with Bloomberg, talked with Rolling Stone. So I wanted to recap some of the stuff that Phil Spencer said, some of the news about Xbox, and then we'll kind of break this into a couple different sections here because there's a lot of news. So speaking to Bloomberg's Dina Bass, Phil Spencer said Microsoft wants to diversify the teams working on games by looking to China. Also spoke about an Xbox handheld, but we'll discuss that in a little bit. Microsoft's planned online store for mobile games has been delayed as the group does additional market research. They won't rule any game out going to other platforms like Nintendo and PlayStation. Also spoke with Rolling Stone, mostly said the same stuff, but there's a paragraph in the Rolling Stone story that I want to read that I think we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, so Phil Spencer talked more about growth, more about pushing into mobile. He said one of the lines was, we're not going to grow the market with $1,000 consoles. So we're still on this thing about the console market sort of plateauing. On these topics specifically, do we have any more thoughts? There's a few things I thought of that I think is interesting. But yeah.
I'm so glad they made this big push to buy King to delay their mobile.
It is weird. I think because right now mobile's in a weird spot because it's owned by Google and Apple, right? Because if you want to have a mobile game, you have to play by their rules. And Microsoft doesn't want to. Epic doesn't want to.
Yeah.
So everybody's trying to figure out like how do we wedge in here? And Epic's solution was to sue. Was to sue everybody.
Was to upset the apple cart.
Yeah, just sue everybody. I don't know if Microsoft would want to do that because it's like that Microsoft and Google and Apple are like three superpowers. And they don't want to like they want to subvert one another. They don't want to directly attack.
It's like Cold War.
It's a Cold War where Epic is like, I don't know, fucking France or something. Like they'll straight up attack. I don't know. France is not a good example. I don't know. Who attacked who during the North Vietnam? I don't know. None of this is tasteful and or makes sense. But maybe North Korea. I don't know. They invaded first, I think. It doesn't matter. The point I'm making is Apple, Google, and Apple, Google, and Microsoft are sort of the big three, and I don't think they want to mess with each other like directly too much through lawsuits and stuff like that. I am curious, like what we talked. Spencer has mentioned growth a lot, and I guess I would love it if he may have done it somewhere, but I would like to see if he sort of defined what growth means. God of War on the PS5 and on PC is growth for Sony, right? Because now you have this secondary market that you tapped in. Getting Candy Crush for Microsoft is growth, but that's a different type of growth because that's a different type of game with a different type of market and a different type of purpose for existing, right? So it's like if Sony were to, which they're pushing into the mobile market, but if Sony were to purchase Candy Crush, then you're not just growing your business. It's like you're adding a different color building to your block, if that makes sense, right? It's not the same type of business. There's a distinction there. It's not the same type of game. It doesn't have the same type of goals. So it's like when Phil Spencer talks about growth, it's like, okay, you want to grow the gaming business, but define growth because you can add a mobile store and you can do free to play mobile games and stuff like that. But that market is going to be distinct from your core console business. Not just console, just your core game business, right? Like South of Midnight, Blade, right? All these Stalker 2 just came out. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, right? These like whatever Bethesda's doing next. Whatever Doom the Dark Times or whatever, Doom Medieval Times.
Dark Age.
Doom the Dark Ages. Yeah, one of those words. Like that
medieval times.
Doom Medieval Times. And Medieval Time. No. That business is like the core of Xbox, right? Single player games, multiplayer games, Halo, whatever. Forza, Gears. But that is different from like Candy Crush, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I would want to know is like, do you think that by gaining a mobile store and stuff like that people that do that core business, they will hop over, or are you just looking to just add the people that do the Candy Crush into your business and call it growth?
Yeah.
But it's not really growth as much as it's just you're just adding more into a pot from a
Tyler,
separate pot.
Number go up.
Well,
number go up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. You look like you had something to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna jumble because I'm very tired. I'm gonna jumble my thoughts here, but we see it all the time with all the companies and how we want them to start doing things. I know wheels are in motion years before like games come out. Concord, I'm gonna use that as an example. The wheels were already in motion before that game came out, so they couldn't just like kind of stop and then like reroute. So I understand that like choices are made before either being revealed or before it's done. But Concord, when it was first shown off, we already like told Sony, I think collectively as an audience, like, no, this is not what we want. Please stop doing this. They did it anyways. And Microsoft, with their mobile push, already has, we already know how the mobile market is and what's making money and what's not. And they seemingly are not, in my eyes, trying to just feed into that. And I guess what I'm going for is smaller gotcha experiences, which, you know, you already have a distaste for mobile. We all do to an extent, but that makes money. And then there's the casual market for games like Monopoly Go and Coin Rush, whatever it's called. And of course, Candy Crush and stuff like that. Those are the types of older demographics that you need to start like thinking about, rather than trying to force gamers, TM and not TM, to hop onto this mobile bandwagon. And the way that I think Microsoft has the perfect opportunity, because they keep talking about it, to get the jump on Sony and place in not necessarily Nintendo, but Sony, and we'll get to that later, by recognizing that graphics and big games are not what gamers want anymore, seemingly. They want smaller experiences, more fulfilling experiences, complete games. And a way you could do that is through mobile, or at least mobile devices, and scale down your development, you know, with your games. Like this, that large word soup was just, you're focusing on the wrong things.
Gamers want calorie dense games,
right? Yes, and if you happen to make a hit, like we talked about it last week, that Star Wars allegory I used, to where like they keep trying to make nostalgia, but George Lucas was just like, yeah, whatever, let's go to the next scene. You know, like, no, you don't think about it. It just will happen eventually. Microsoft is kind of, I don't know. I think that, yeah, just like everybody else has problems. Sony has problems. Nintendo has problems. Microsoft's problem is trying to chase this mobile market that has been there already for a long time, that they're probably not going to get a word in edgewise.
I would agree that I don't know where executives' minds are when it comes to like how good looking games need to be or whatever, and with Unreal Engine 5 now and rocks that look super photorealistic. I don't know what like developers and stuff think. But yeah, I think you're correct, and I think a developer, like a studio like Obsidian, right, which is an Xbox studio, I believe.
Yeah, they are now. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Xbox bought them out a couple years ago, right? In any case, Obsidian's games, as far as I know, Obsidian's games are not $150 million, $200 million, $300 million games, right? Obsidian makes sort of cheaper games that are denser, right? Really good, and that's their sort of bread and butter. But at the same time, Obsidian also makes they are, I don't know, maybe Obsidian is like the this mystical AA developer that we talk about. Because if you ask people, does Obsidian make AAA games, they would probably say yes. But the most visually complex game Obsidian has made in the past few years is probably, damn it, what's that space game called? Outer Worlds?
Yeah.
Maybe Grounded. I don't know. I haven't played Grounded. But like,
did they do Grounded? Oh shit, did they?
Yeah. I think it was them. Yeah. So it's like those are pretty I would assume like technically expensive. I'm sure Pillars of Eternity and the RPGs and Pentiment were expensive, but I'm going to assume that they were not as technically demanding or expensive as Outer Worlds, right? So the point I'm making there is Xbox already has probably a few studios where you could scale down and you could say, hey, you don't need to make this game that expensive, and you don't need to make a game with this huge budget for it to be super successful. I don't know how Avowed may be super expensive. I don't know. The previews dropped last week. Everyone was saying it was really good, which I take as a huge deal. So yeah, that's an interesting thought. That maybe like my Xbox does the thing that Sean Layden like constantly talks about, scaling down and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to talk about this paragraph from Rolling Stone just real quick because it kind of bothered me when I read it. So I want to get the author here. So Rolling Stone just recently started up their video game, what's the term? Column, whatever. Video game sidebar, column, reporting, whatever. Op-ed thing. So the story was by Christopher Cruz for Rolling Stone, and Christopher Cruz was talking about some of the problems at Xbox, and I want to read this paragraph. Quote, but even with the acquisitions, it hasn't been an entirely smooth road, with high-profile games like Redfall, Starfield, and Senua's Saga arriving to tepid reception from fans and critics. Although sales for Starfield were initially strong, the game's player base has waned even with the recently released Shattered Space expansion. The weak performance of these first-party titles and the continued support of other platforms has only stoked the fire for players who say Xbox will soon drop out of the console game. I don't think Xbox will drop out. I don't see why, because if your whole thing is we want to be able to meet players where they are, it wouldn't make sense to just turn off a huge valve of where players are, which is consoles. But speculation is fine. I just don't think it will happen. But the sentence that bothers me in that paragraph is the talk of player base, right? So although sales for Starfield were initially strong, the game's player base has waned. Okay, now I don't know why that sentence is in the paragraph. It could be an editor that put it in there because the player base has waned is linked. So it's like, hey, we need to link to another story for Google SEO money, blah, blah, blah. So an editor puts in a line that is kind of off so that they can, so that maybe Google,
get the extra eyes, analytics.
But maybe it was written that way because somebody thinks it's important. But I think as journalists, as game journalists, as people that are covering the industry, when you write a line like that, what you're saying is that this thing is important, right? So if you're a layman, if you're somebody who's just reading the news, casual audience, or maybe you're someone who's into it like us, and you read that sentence, by saying that the player base has waned for a single player game, you are sharing information that you consider relevant to the overall story, right? Which I think arguably it is not relevant. It may be relevant to executives because player numbers and stuff like that. But I think if you're covering the games industry, you have to be able to sift through sort of what is important in different contexts, what is important to the investor class, to executives, and what is important to your average reader who wants to understand what Xbox is doing stuff and whatnot. So if you want to communicate something that is important to the investor class, to the average dude or woman, man, whatever, playing video games, then I think you have to make that distinction as to why certain things are important to them, but maybe not important to your average reader. I don't know if that makes sense. I know that sounds super nitpicky, but we have this discussion all the time about like, okay, player-based numbers. How do they matter? What are the contexts that they matter? Is it annoying when people constantly browse Steam charts and, go, oh, the game's dead? And yes, there's a whole conversation to be said about that. But when we start adding that into player-based numbers, into a paragraph about a single player game and trying to show it in the context of Xbox's other struggles, then I think we're getting into territory where we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing without a lot more context or a lot more conversation about the nuance behind why a single player game's player base count matters and to whom it matters and to why. So does that just a paragraph?
I could be wrong, but I do remember my eye is killing me right now.
I'm sorry.
I do remember an interview with Todd Howard where he was going on about wanting people to keep playing Starfield over and over And if that's what they're like alluding to, is like his insistence on this game being like having a consistent player base, a large player base that's continually playing through the game over and over, then I would say, context should be added there for that. But I do think that for that game, for Starfield specifically, because of what Todd Howard was saying, and in relation to the game, it is important to that game from the developer side.
If you're reporting it because of something that Todd Howard said, then yeah, I think you need to put in the context that this fact is important because it's something that the developer said was important to how the audience reacts to the game. But that I don't see that there. What I see there is here's a bunch of stuff that Xbox is struggling with, and so we're gonna throw this in because really I think Starfield, from a bottom line standpoint, Starfield was a huge success, right? So if anything, it financially, I think Starfield is proof positive that Xbox is moving in the right direction. If you're just if you're an investor or whatever,
right?
You could care less that people didn't like it and people made, is Bethesda gonna die soon? You could care less because a game just came out that sold a lot of copies and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know,
but it is disappointing and very strange that Starfield specifically is probably the least favorable out of all of Bethesda's games when it comes to single player replayability, because I understand it's because of all the mod support for Skyrim, but there are people who have created games upon games inside of Skyrim for themselves to just play, and its retention is still impressive for a 13-year-old game now, I think.
2011.
Yeah, 2011. So, but it sucks that Starfield, supposedly, I haven't played it, but just from conversations I've seen, doesn't have the same type of extensive mod support for its game in order to retain that single player. If that's something they're really worried about, or at least this person, feels is important to say.
I think one of the key proponents for there not being such a strong, well, I don't know if there isn't a strong, but not as strong as say Skyrim mod community, is Starfield's just a big nothing burger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure if Starfield were better, I'm sure there's a lot of cool mods you can make for it because it's like a sci-fi game, but space and stuff.
But there's so little with the game already that modders will have to make a game to supplement Starfield, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think an interesting study may be like, what does adding Steam Workshop to a game on Steam, does that help with retention? Whether or not retention is important, let's just say, does it, besides that context, because like if a game has workshop support, then all of a sudden mods become much more streamlined and easier, right?
Yeah.
Than even like mod DB or whatever. So in that case, does that help with retention? Because all of a sudden you have an easy way for a larger audience to download and install mods and change the game, which brings people back. If you want to go back to Skyrim, and let's say the Steam Workshop didn't exist, and you want to go back to Skyrim and you want to try mods, that's a whole lot of work you have to do on your own, as opposed to going back to Skyrim and you go to the Steam Workshop page and you've got all kinds of stuff that you can add to Steam or add to Skyrim with literally one click, right?
Yeah.
So now, obviously, adding Steam Workshop support is not like this easy thing that people can do with the snap of their fingers.
It's not a button click.
It's not a button click, so I'm not going to sit here and say they should have done it for Starfield, because I'm sure it's not easy. I'm sure it's very complicated. But yeah, I'm just saying that would be an interesting thing to look at, like if Steam Workshop support, because that has definitely, because everyone that goes back and plays Skyrim,
I can almost guarantee that the inclusion of Steam Workshop is so sporadic game by game that will yield no usable data.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, because there's some games where where the majority of the modding community is localizations.
Yeah. Yeah. And then games like The Witcher continue to have player bases, and The Witcher doesn't have or it does now. Maybe it was just recently that it was Steam Workshop, or maybe it still doesn't. I don't know. Maybe the fact that I don't know is proof positive because The Witcher has people playing it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe that's not. I don't know. I would still do the study. I would fund it. I've got $1. Someone's out there wants
I
to
was
do
about
it.
to say, or as you know, Hearts of Iron goes, it's just anime portrait mods.
Of course.
Nice.
Of course. Okay, let's get on to this other thing here. Richard, what's going on with Handhelds?
Bloomberg's Takashi Mochizuki and Debbie Wu are reporting that Sony is in the early development stages of a portable console that would play its games on the move. We're going to be reading from the story here. Quote, the product is aimed at expanding Sony's reach and contending with Nintendo Corporation for the portable gaming market. According to people familiar with its development, it would also counter any potential mobile hardware from Xbox maker Microsoft, which is working on prototypes in the category as well. Sony's portable device is likely years away from launch, and the company could still decide against bringing it to the market. The idea builds on the PlayStation Portal. Sony initially had intended for it to function as a standalone device like Valve's Steam Deck. End quote. In that interview with Dina Bass, Spencer said the expectation at Microsoft is that Xbox will have a handheld, but right now the company is only working on prototypes and studying the market. An Xbox handheld device is still a few years out. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subs can stream select games that they own, even if those games are not a part of Game Pass. That is something that they added recently, I think. Also, PlayStation Plus Premium subscriptions can stream some games from the Premium to the PlayStation Portal, which also just happened recently.
It just happened, I think, today. Yeah. So this, we still don't know like what to really think about cloud gaming.
It's bad.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one way of looking at it.
No, it's bad.
But let me play devil's advocate.
No. No.
Okay, does cloud gaming excite us? Does that interest us? Does this make us want let's say that the main draw to an Xbox or PlayStation handheld was that you could stream your console to it. Does that, which you can already do in some capacity, would that make us, does that excite us? Does that feature of a console, I don't know, does that interest us at all?
Well, it's heavily game dependent. Because if I'm gonna play Space Marine 2 on the PS5, I'm gonna want to play it on a big screen because it's gonna look better. I'm gonna have the better quality audio from my audio setup, and so it's just gonna be a better experience than on a handheld device. I don't have a Steam Deck, but if I'm gonna play a game on Game Pass, I can probably get it on Steam, and I could probably play it on my Steam Deck. So it's heavily dependent on what games are particularly being pushed to be played on these platforms.
Yeah, and the thing is, and when we talk about these companies pushing into mobile, from a certain perspective, that makes sense because mobile means Candy Crush, right? Which is money, whatever. But to the side, this is like the other side of mobile, which is handheld devices, right?
Market,
which is sort of which is a distinction.
It is, yes.
And it makes sense for Steam because that's PC gaming.
Yes.
So when you think of a PC, what is the context of a PC? PC is going to be at a desk.
It's a grounded thing.
It's a grounded thing. It's a giant box. It's hard to move. It's got fans, water. It's got all kinds of shit inside of it that you don't want to touch. So it's the thing that's difficult to move. And not every game is comfortable to play sitting at a desk, right? Balatro is one of those games you can play in bed because it's very simple. Whereas a game like Squad or Space Marine 2, you want your 1440 monitor in front of you that you paid way too much for, and you want your headphones that you paid way too much for, and stuff like that, right? You kind of want all those amenities that you build a gaming PC for that pushes the FPS and the sound
It'll
quality
give a
and all
specific
that, right?
experience.
Yeah, you want all that, but you don't really need that with Balatro. You don't need it with Pillars of Eternity. You don't need it with Pentiment. So the Steam Deck makes sense because it is an extension of your PC where it says, okay, a lot of these small games, which thrive on Steam often, here's another context where you can play them that is tethered to your PC, but you can sort of untether it. You can sort of disconnect it, right? And that makes a lot of sense. Now with PlayStation, I don't know. Does that work the same way? I guess like if I got Balatro on the PS5, that would be great. If there was a handheld version of my PS5 that I could install Balatro on. So if there was a one-to-one comparison, that would make sense. But when you talk game streaming, that's different because that's a different technology. The thing's working in a different way. So now all of a sudden, my choice isn't just with my Steam Deck. My choice is, do I want to play Stalker 2 on my Steam Deck? Probably not, because Stalker 2 is super demanding. It's not going to look great. I need my PC for that, right? But like Balatro, I will. Where on my PlayStation, now you add in now the deciding factor there is you're streaming those things, which is another layer of a technical hurdle, right? And now because you're streaming, it's do I want to play Black Myth Wukong on my, let's say Black Myth Wukong ran perfectly on a handheld. Maybe I would be okay with it, probably not. But if you add cloud streaming to that, well, definitely not, because cloud streaming, all of a sudden you're telling me if I miss a dodge because my internet has a hiccup for a split second and I die to a boss at the 80th time, I'm going to snap my handheld in half, right? So it's like that I'm not willing to take the risk. So I think the streaming technology is still the thing that I just don't know. And does that interest the casual person? Maybe. I'm not sure.
And for streaming, multiplayer is right out.
You would think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because anything where there's any kind of lag is just not going to. It's just not going to work.
You have to have the bandwidth to not only stream the game, but keep a consistent connection with 36 other players, 40 whatever other players. So
yeah. And even streaming my PC to my deck isn't always a great experience. Now that's Steam, it's a totally different thing, but just game streaming in general has always kind of had issues. Connor, you played through Starfield on Xbox, on xCloud, whatever. But that was like last year, right? So maybe the experience now is better. I don't know.
Right, it's still Starfield.
Okay, but I mean the outside of the bad writing and the boring combat and the boring worlds and the inspiration and all that, besides all those things, just like the functioning of the game may be better now. I don't know.
I don't know, because like unless they increased their like server capacity several tenfold, going in to play a single player game, there was times where I had to sit in a queue.
Yeah, that really sucks.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's still a thing. Yeah.
If a game gets high enough demand, it will be.
But by virtue of servers.
Yeah.
And that happens with multiplayer games right now. God, I didn't even think about that. Could you imagine if you have, 3 hours between finishing up being an adult and going to bed, and you want to sit down and play a game, and you spend an hour and a half in queue? Yeah, or if like when GTA 6 releases, and let's say Xbox and PlayStation both release a streaming-based handheld or something like that.
Those servers are going to shit themselves.
Right, because everyone's trying to stream GTA 6 instead of like downloading it or whatever. That would be...
The biggest game of the year launched on the 19th, and its servers died within 2 hours of its launch. Talk about Flight Sim 2024.
Okay, I don't know if I would call that the biggest game of the year.
That was the joke.
Yeah, maybe physically the biggest because it's the entire planet with all the foxes included. It's very, very impressive.
Yeah, but like again, Flight Sim had issues with its servers.
Sure. Yeah.
Not a big game release.
Yeah.
Big with the Flight Sim community, but that's not a big community.
The other thing is I don't know. I don't think you're going to compete with Nintendo because Nintendo's in its own world. And that is the console.
Yeah.
As opposed to having a periphery. It would be weird because the step to get, I'm assuming Switch 2 is going to be the same structure where it's a Switch, right?
Yeah.
It would be weird if all of a sudden
it's going back to a console that's motion control.
It would be
Wii
weird
2.
if the next Nintendo console was a console with controllers and that was it, right? I don't think that would make any sense. So I'm going to assume the next Switch is just going to be a
better Switch.
A better Switch, right? That has the dock and everything, right? But once you buy Switch 2, you get the handheld.
Yeah.
It's there. If you have these handheld options with PlayStation and Xbox, you buy the console, then you got to buy the handheld, then you got to buy the games that are going to work in the handheld context, right? So there's barriers there. How many people are going to jump those barriers, and are there enough people that will jump those barriers to make it where your handheld device competes with Nintendo itself, not Nintendo's handheld option, just Nintendo's console? I just don't see, I don't know, to me that doesn't seem realistic. It seems like a weird thing to shoot for.
And that's a whole other discussion that I've been thinking about sitting here. Not about the cloud stuff, but particularly we're in a completely different era of gaming in 2024 than we were in 2005, probably the best example I have, in which Steam is in an incredible position. Their platform is used by literally every single PC gamer. And so they release Steam Deck and they go, here's our little handheld. You can play all your Steam games on it as long as it's verified. And we ask that everybody who puts their game on our thing at least try to make it verified on that machine. Sure, you have the ROG Ally and you have Legion Go and all that to, help with those more beefier games. But you can rest assured that if you get a Steam Deck, large majority of your games you're going to want to play are going to work, especially those games that people can't put down. Stardew Valley, Cyberpunk, Baldur's Gate 3. Granted, they may not work well. They work well enough for those people
to work well.
Oh yeah, but they work to be in the top 10 every month.
Sure, yeah.
Nintendo has just the name behind them and the goodwill of the perception of being a handheld expert since 1989.
And they don't make visually demanding games.
They don't. No. Less is more for them, which is really great.
The upside that Microsoft has is Game Pass,
and that's my next point.
It's gonna have to like be built in Game Pass integration.
Yeah, and Microsoft is in the best position to be that third place. And I've made that allegory before about there's always three, like at least in the top end. So Microsoft could be that third because of not just Game Pass, but they are the closest to understanding PC hardware that they can capture all of that as well. PlayStation has the hardest hill to climb, mostly because in 2005 with the PSP, sure, they had their handhelds, they had their exclusives, but they also had the benefit of having like sports games, racing games, stuff like that, stuff that you could not get on PC. Now everything is released on PC.
Yep. Yeah.
So what are you offering besides your first party games that come out once or twice a year, if that maybe?
And do you want to play Ghost of Yotai on a handheld device?
Probably not.
Especially if you have a $500 game console and a 4K TV and a soundbar or headphones.
And that's not saying people won't play those games handheld, but a very large audience comparatively will not.
Yeah. I understand. I understand and admire sort of Xbox's go where players are, but sometimes I do wonder, like, okay, but are players there? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, for example, Ghost of Yotai. I know it's not an Xbox game, but how many people are in the camp of, I would love to play Ghost of Yotai at 30 FPS on a 8-inch screen? Like, are there a ton of people? Maybe there are. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
I don't
but it
think
seems
there's
to me
gonna be a lot.
It doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot. Now, maybe there are a ton of people that will play Madden like that. I don't know. Maybe Fortnite.
Probably run better.
Right. Fortnite, your sports games, your live service games. Maybe that context probably changes things. I don't know. One of the things about the Steam Deck that I think people maybe sometimes forget, and this when the Steam Deck was announced. The day it was announced, Richard, we had telepathic communication because we both said the same thing, which is they are not competing with Nintendo. Stop saying it.
We're thinking the exact same thing.
Yes, because people were like, because I have seen the memes of like Gabe's coming for Nintendo, bro, and it's like, no, he's not. If Gabe came for anybody, it would not be Nintendo. It would be to try and get away from the shark that attacked him.
It's kind of like I watched some of the Half-Life documentary, and you know how like the one guy was talking about how he was developing the Half-Life multiplayer just on his own. Like he was just developing it, and Gabe passed by and he's like, "What's this?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Half-Life multiplayer. Show it to me tomorrow." And then like he just left. It's like Gabe walked in and was like, "Here's this thing," and then like
just scurried away.
Yeah, not like I'm not saying there was no afterthought. There was obviously plans to, but it's just like, here's this cool thing. See ya.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh.
it's no doubt that the Steam Deck is a work of genius, right? It's like totally changed the industry. PC, it's like it's a whole new thing. It, you have all these, and I think it started a trend of like how do we get
a standard?
handheld?
Yeah.
It was the next step in PC gaming. Portable PC.
Portable PCs. But the thing is like
Laptops.
But you can't walk into a GameStop or Best Buy or a Target or Walmart or whatever, Verizon Electronics if they still exist.
They don't.
And get a Steam Deck.
No,
that's not on shelves. So it's like Valve's market for this is it's people that are in the know that are on Steam, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's people that are already going to shell out money to have really good gaming experiences on PC.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And now you're giving them another gaming experience with PC.
And the Steam Deck, the Steam Deck is not a thing that is meant. I mean, it is meant to, you turn it on, you install Stardew Valley, you can play, yay.
Yeah.
But it's also got this other side where it's like you can dig into its guts and modify it and stuff like that, right?
Libertarianism.
Because it is a PC, right?
Yeah.
So it's not something that is necessarily tailor-made to be foolproof and for a casual audience to just pick off a store shelf like a Nintendo is. I think so. I don't know, what I'm trying to say here is when we talk about handheld devices and we point to the Steam Deck, I think it's important to remember that the Steam Deck, I don't know, it's like if we were talking about airplanes and we're talking like if Sony and PlayStation are making 747s and and 747s are just crashing left and right because they're made by fucking
Sony and
no, I was gonna say the doors are getting ripped off, wings are coming off because they're made by what's that fucking company?
Boeing.
They're made by Boeing. Yeah, planes are Boeing off the ground, right? At Boeing. A long stupid joke that's not that funny. What I was saying is, if they're making like the 747s, Steam is making like the F-22 Raptor. It's like, yes, it's an airplane, but it's a completely different purpose. It has different things, different aerodynamics. Yes, it's better and cooler.
Oh,
no,
it's getting more close like to the A10 Warthog.
Maybe A10
It was kind of ugly.
Steam Deck's awesome. Fuck you, you're ugly.
Wow.
It's beautiful, but in that ugly way.
Okay,
And you could drop it from a 10-story building, and the ground will take more damage than the Steam Deck.
I rescind my fuck you. I'm sorry, I apologize.
I did drop my Steam Deck now, so
Oh God, is it okay?
yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, see?
The RB is like a little weird, but not weird enough that like it's mine, so I know how to use it, so it's not weird. But if somebody were to play it, they'd be like, RB isn't working, and I'll be like, oh, sorry.
It's a little personality to it. Huh?
Yeah.
A little bit. There. If you go on Steam and you go to the Steam Deck page, it has a little like video of people holding the deck and playing it in different places. There was one psychopath who was sitting at a swimming pool, holding it over the water. As if he is interrogating it to tell this, like, to get the deck to tell him where the deck held it, like hid its cocaine or something like that before it dips it and it fucking kills it into the water. I don't know why you would hold your Steam Deck over water.
Some people like to live dangerously.
Yeah.
I just when I hold the Steam Deck, I have held babies less carefully than I hold my Steam Deck every time I carry it around. So, I mean, I'm not joking. You give me a baby and I hold it with one hand.
Tossed around like football.
I'm walking around like Kyler Murray. I've got it in one hand and I'm just like, my hand's swinging. That's a baby. You give me a Steam Deck and I've got like, I hold it both hands. If anyone gets
wrapped
near
it in
me,
bubble wrap.
I wrap it in bubble wrap. If anyone gets near me, I hiss. It becomes much different. With the baby, I'm like, what the fuck? This thing can't play games. What the use is a fucking baby for?
What's the resolution on this?
What's this baby's resolution? It only has 2 eyes. It's got 2 fucking pixels. It's 2x1. What the hell? Anyway,
It does have a petabyte hard drive. The
Are you
brain?
talking about the brain?
Something like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, yeah. You can't install anything on it though, and you can't add anything to it.
No,
Where do I put my M.2 on this baby?
Unless there's something wrong with the eyes, you got 60 frames a second.
Oh,
Maybe if you put
2
on,
pixels at 60 frames a second. Hell
if you,
yeah,
put,
brother.
if you put glasses on, would that be upscaling? I don't know. Okay, anyway.
We've lost the thread.
So I'm not gonna be able to transition. Now for a legitimately serious discussion about Valve, because there are some things about Valve that I think are frustrating. So the ADL the Anti-Defamation League came out with this report detailing extremist and hateful content on Steam. Basically, the worst kind of stuff that you can think of, edgelord stuff, racism, all the isms, all the hates, everything they detailed in it. The report is ugly, but not necessarily surprising, and the ADL says it found, among other things, 1.83 million pieces of extremist or hateful content. After the report, Virginia Senator Mark Warner sent a letter to Gabe Newell concerned about hateful content on Steam and said that Valve must bring its content moderation policy in line with industry standards or face more intense scrutiny from the federal government. Warner then concluded the letter with a list of questions for Valve about its content moderation practices and policies to be completed before December 13th. We've also had things like, there was just a bunch of, Roblox, it seems like for the past few months. Every few weeks we get a story about horrific predation on Roblox and whatnot, and all kinds of horrible shit going on Roblox. The teenager who shared documents on Discord, Jack Teixeira, I think his name is, he was just sentenced to like 20 years in jail or something like that, for posting classified documents on Discord, and Discord has its own problems with moderating hate and stuff like that. So this is not a new or surprising thing about a company. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I will say this. I understand Steam's hands-off approach. I understand that they are this like company that is sort of idiosyncratic and done things a certain way for a long time, and they've been super successful. But I just don't see why you can't take a harder stance about something, and that's frustrating to me. Because Steam is extremely powerful, extremely influential.
Mm-hmm.
And, if Steam came out tomorrow and, I don't know, just put out a statement condemning things in no uncertain terms, it wouldn't hurt their business if that's what somebody's worried about. It wouldn't benefit their business, but it would at least be something. And I don't understand why Steam is so afraid of, like, sometimes, I don't know, having opinions or appearing to care about the world or something like that. When People Make Games did their video, they talked about all that with relation to George Floyd and the protests in 2020. And it's just like, I'm not saying Steam has to read thousands of pages of critical race theory and like post a thesis. But is it really that hard to say, hey, don't hate, something like that? Their content moderation policies obviously say, don't be a dick and stuff like that. But why not just be a little more specific or rigid? I don't know. Why not use some of that money to figure out content moderation? This is one of the problems with Valve, right? Valve is a bunch of people with desks with wheels on them, and they go around and, everybody kind of does their own thing or whatever. That's sort of the myth. And it's like, if nobody wants to do a thing, it's just not going to get done. So it's like, if nobody wants to work on a project or nobody starts it, then it may not get there. It may not be something that happens. And so what that leads to is certain things like a VR headset or handheld device get made and flourish, but other things like content moderation, or back in the day with like Steam Greenlight or Steam Direct, where there was just a flood of garbage, those things kind of struggle because it just seems like people are less interested in the jobs that would the upkeep jobs, I guess. I don't know. So it's frustrating because I don't know. I just don't think it's that difficult. Content moderation is difficult, but I don't think it's difficult to just say, to release a statement, to be a little bit more defined in your condemnation and stuff like that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be difficult to sit at a desk and every now and again, if there's like an ant that crawls on your desk, just go, oh, because that's what you do. You're just kind of like, oh yeah, stop that, please. I mean, I know I say it like it's that easy. I know it isn't, but Valve has kind of, much like Nintendo a long time ago, when they had troubles with the GameCube era and not having any third-party support and people complaining about it, when the Wii came out, Nintendo was just like, all right, well, every third-party game can come in. And then that led the way for shovelware and just tons of crap to fill like the eShop and whatnot. And that has continued since. Valve kind of does the same thing where it's just like, I know it was a couple years back, but they had like, it was when they allowed 18 plus games.
Yeah.
It was just like, all right, well, you all can come in, you know, and that leads to like unfortunate, stupid things like.
We talked about it, like a rape fantasies. And
well,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
and like stupid shit like what, sex with Hitler.
Sex with Hitler.
But which is a problem because you make it funny, but then that funny makes it okay, which opens the door for everything else, you know.
And that's not obviously what is satire, what is tasteful. Those are complex discussions.
Right.
A lot of the stuff in the ADL, which the ADL is not an organization that is apolitical. It has its own views and it has its own opinions on things, which I think a lot of people, including myself, don't really like. But when it comes to like posting swastikas, that's not satire or good-natured humor. That's clearly just either being a Nazi or being an edgelord, right? So it's like there's not a whole lot of like gray area there, and as is true with a lot of other things. So it's like, yeah, you're totally correct in like. I get that you want to be careful because if you go too far moderating things, then you stamp out creativity, you stamp out art. I don't know. If you don't allow violence, then it's like, okay, well, there goes every video game ever made or whatever. But it's like that there is a spectrum, and yes, just because you can't tell where red becomes blue, you can't put a pin where red becomes blue. It doesn't mean that you just put your hands in the air and say, we can't do anything. You have to be able to dig in and figure out some way of dealing with that. Because if you don't, the people that do get in there will take advantage of it, and they create shit like this, and it's not fun for anybody. So yeah. Is there anything else we wanted to say about this? No. Do we have tidbits?
I can run through some. We don't have to talk about them, but yeah.
Let's do it. What if I told you in this world there are bits and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits? Before you start, I just want to say, I don't know what's going on in this room, but I think we have all had like things happen with our eyes.
Oh, today? Yeah.
Connor, like 15 minutes ago, was dying because something got in his eye. I feel like something's in my eye.
I had a little tickle here.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on.
It's a fan probably just blowing.
Just blowing
crap.
When was the last time you tested that fan?
Richard, tidbits.
Another game is being ported for the last generation of consoles. Back in September, Jedi Survivor got ported to Xbox One and PS4, back ported. And now The Finals is being backported to the PS4 on December 12th. A PS5 Pro update will also be released for the game. Don't know if it's going to be the same day or later. November 21st was the 20th anniversary of the Nintendo DS. So that's pretty neat. Alan Wake 2 sales top 1.8 million. It should be at least another million higher than that.
And it still doesn't have a Steam release yet.
No Steam release, but it does have physical now. So,
son of a bitch! I'm gonna have to buy another copy of Alan Wake.
$49.99.
Do we? What, really?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's on sale right now for $49.99.
Do we know if it's gonna release on Steam?
I mean, I hope so.
I feel like it has to.
I hope so, but that'll be too late. GameStop has it for $49.99 right now.
Oh man, okay.
And it comes with Alan Wake remastered. So
I will have to buy it in the future and not play it, but just get the box.
Absolutely,
because I want to own that physically. But what was I gonna? I feel like if it Control's on Steam, right? Is Control not on Steam?
Control's on Steam, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like.
But that was before Epic made the deal for Alan Wake with Epic Store.
Did Control release on Epic before Steam? I don't remember. I want to say yes.
Yes.
I wonder if we go back and look at the numbers Control did when it released on Steam after releasing on Epic. I wonder if that would graft onto how Alan Wake 2 does. But as far as I know, Alan Wake 2 has been successful, right? I hope so.
Yeah, I think it has. So I hope it becomes more successful. But let's see here. Kadokawa Corporation has published a statement confirming reports that Sony Group Corporation has expressed the intent to acquire Kadokawa Corporation, but a decision has not yet been made. The big deal about this is that Kadokawa owns From Software, which, of course, obviously, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, all that jazz. They also are a media conglomerate, so that's going to be tons of anime, manga, which Sony has been quietly snatching up pretty much every source for all anime and manga. So,
Really?
Oh yeah, So, kind of a small monopoly going there. But since it's cartoons, no one cares. No one cares.
I don't know if I would, with the way Sony has handled some of their PC ports and like the PSN account bullshit and whatnot. I don't know. I leave From Software alone. They're fine on their own. They have issues, but
They're fine on their own. How come they're not on their own?
well, what I mean by
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? Damn it!
I know what you mean. Oh man, sorry.
with Tidbits.
According to our good friend Matt Piscatella over at Circana, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 did some things to Game Pass in the U.S. It resulted in a subscription spending boost, shifted a share of full game sales to PlayStation, but it did not appear to result in massive cannibalization of sales, and it also did not appear to provide a significant boost to Xbox Series hardware. That's all.
Yeah, and does that matter to Xbox? Because again, they're not a console,
Probably not.
They're more concerned with, did we find players where they are?
Yeah.
And is that, did it do the thing that
They got their money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the thing is, I don't know. I don't work in a game store. You work in a game store, but it's also not a GameStop. It's a collector's store, so people come in with like there's a different clientele.
Yeah.
But like, how many people? How would you gauge, just in your experience, people's knowledge of Game Pass as an option for them to play games?
It's probably 50 to 60% of people
So
know
a good
Game Pass.
chunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would probably say maybe 20 to 30% of them don't care.
They're fine buying it.
Yeah, it's we still have not a pushback, but we still have a mindset of I don't want digital, I want physical. But that number is growing smaller, smaller and smaller. But we do have that it's very strong with consoles, because it's like, oh, do you have this console? Does it play discs? Like it's one after the other. So that's still very strong. But when it comes to like games and downloading them and stuff. It's getting smaller, but people still want like physical and stuff.
The reason I ask is because I'm curious, because it said Matt Piscatella reported that it didn't cannibalize the sales for Call of Duty. Let's say in 10 years, this is the way it goes for 10 years. At some point in the next decade, do people start to find out, oh, I spend every year $70 on Call of Duty, but I really don't need to because it's on this thing called Game Pass. And so as more and more people switch over to Game Pass and they're paying $10 a month, does that eventually start to cannibalize Call of Duty? And at one point, does it become a problem? And how does Xbox respond? We have talked about Xbox eventually having to raise the price on Game Pass, which they have. Now, does a whole bunch of people subscribing for $10 a month on Game Pass compensate for them not buying a $70 game every year? I don't know. There's some interesting economics.
They go from buying a $70 game every year to paying $120 every year.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they stay on Game Pass the whole time.
Yeah. And
if they don't up the price of Game Pass,
which I don't remember how much Game Pass. It's more than $10 a month.
It's like 17 or 18 bucks a month now.
Yeah.
For 1 month. Yeah.
So that, because it costs more, if it costs $8 a month, I think, because I don't know how these things work. But I've always assumed that people, even like the difference between an $8 subscription and an $18 subscription is only $10. It's not that. It's only $10. But if you ask somebody, hey, this is an $18 a month subscription, this is an $8 a month subscription, they'll keep the $8 a month subscription in perpetuity, but the $18 a month, they're like, oh, I'll just subscribe when I need to. I don't know if that's true. I feel like it's true. I wonder if that's true with Game Pass. I don't know. Do we have anything else?
No, that was all.
Okay. Follow us, Twitter and YouTube.com, Blue Sky, Patreon. Interview hopefully in the next few days. We'll see you next week.
Bye.